Your age, race, religion, and most importantly, your gender should never dictate what you can and cannot do with your life. Sevens player for the Wales women's team, Philippa Tuttiett, is one of those people who refuses to be categorized not only in sports, but also in her careers after rugby. Philippa, thank you for taking the time to chat with us at the Rugby Business Network about your incredibly captivating life.
Oh, well, thank you very much. No problem at all.
Well, Philippa, interestingly, you only started playing rugby when you were in university, but from a child you loved all sorts of sports. If your rugby career never existed, could you have imagined yourself playing some other sport professionally?
To be honest with you, when I was a youngster, I loved playing every sport, any sport, but I never ever thought about being an international. It was only really when I had the opportunity to go and watch an international women's rugby game when I was at university that it then sort of struck a chord with me, and then I sort of started dreaming and thinking about it. But it just goes to show the importance of really exhibiting women's sport on TV, giving youngsters an opportunity to see how far you could take it, because that was definitely the spark for me.
Well, you have had a long and successful career with the Wales Sevens team, and 2014 was quite a high point for you as you were named Welsh Rugby Union Player of the Year. Looking back now, which achievements are the ones that stand out for you the most?
I mean, I've been very fortunate to be involved in some great fixtures. I've played in the World Cup, played in the Six Nations, but for me, standout points were always sort of markers in my career rather than specific sort of titles. So, standout for me would be my very first selection letter. Now, I remember that like it was yesterday. And, reading my name was at the bottom of a very long list, but still it was there, and I'll always remember that. And then getting your first international cap. But I think probably the height for me was playing in the World Cup 2014. I had some troubles that season, even though I did come out with the accolade of the WRU Regional Player of the Year. I had some highs and lows, but I really fought back from it and managed to cap it all off with a strong performance at the World Cup. So that's probably my most memorable season, that one.
So many memories to look back on. Well, having also played club rugby for the likes of Clifton, Bristol and Cardiff Blues, how did that compare to playing sevens rugby and also touch rugby, which you played quite a fair amount of?
Yeah, I've been really lucky to be able to turn my hand to the 15s, the sevens and the touch. And although they're obviously incredibly different games, I do believe that there are definitely skill sets that transfer over and that can benefit you. I know certainly playing touch rugby benefited my union career so much, and being so disciplined to not run at half a gap. In touch rugby, it's got to be a huge gap for you to get through to not be touched, and then to take that attitude and that creativity of always trying to make that space into the union game definitely helped me. And the professionalism at Bristol, playing in the English Premiership, also really sort of kick-started my career and really set me on the right platform, playing with lots of different internationals. I think at the 2014 World Cup, the Bristol club that I was playing for had the highest amount of players represented in the World Cup. I think there was 11 of us from the starting 15 actually playing in that World Cup for various nations. So training in that kind of environment with that sort of quality and calibre of players was fantastic for my development.
Philippa, you touched on this earlier, and just to elaborate more on it, what do you feel needs to happen or to change in order for women's rugby, not just in the UK, but worldwide, to become more popular and recognised on the same level as the men?
I think it's simply down to exposure. We need people to know it exists, it happens, and most importantly, that it's actually really good quality and very entertaining rugby. We saw the chance we gave the World Cup this year. ITV picked it up here in the UK and gave it a prime time slot for the World Cup final. And I think it was one of the most watched women's rugby games, we've ever had. So it just goes to show if the networks do give it a chance and put it on, a known channel at a good time, then give people the opportunity to pick it up. Because once they do that, then they will start going to watch the games. And as soon as you start getting bums on seats, you start getting more money into the game. That's when we can really make it grow. But I think it's just going to take a couple of networks to sort of put their put the hand out there and give it a go and exhibit the game for the quality that it is.
Absolutely. Well, 2014 had its highs for you, as you mentioned, but it also provided an opportunity for you to decide what parts of rugby you wanted to stick with and move away from, because you decided that it was time to hang up your boots in rugby union. Was that a difficult decision for you to make at the time?
To move away from union, it was obviously a difficult choice. You'd be amazed at how much you all of a sudden you miss your friends as well, because everyone's so busy with their rugby, but you take it for granted that you see them all the time because you're always at training together. But then when one of you isn't at training, all of a sudden you miss out on a big set of friends there. But I did feel that I've been very blessed to have almost 10 years in the international game with union, and I felt very lucky to have achieved what I had, and to come through with a fit and healthy body as well. So it was tough, but I was given some great opportunities to do some mentoring work. I was a mentor with Sky Sports and also with the Dame Kelly Holmes Trust, which I still work with now. And being able to sort of redirect my attention into supporting younger athletes to come into the game really gave me a sense of drive, and it helped me. It was almost cathartic in my sort of getting over my career by being able to talk about it a lot and talk about all the highs and the lows and the benefits it's given me. And that really helped me to sort of move forward. But with the Sevens, I'm still involved. I'm still going with the Sevens, and I'm hoping to maybe make one more season with the Welsh Sevens, especially with the Commonwealth Games coming up.
And we'll be holding thumbs for you. Well, Philippa, it's shocking to hear that during your time with the Wales national team, you've not been paid for playing while the men's team is. How much of a challenge is that for you in terms of generating funds?
Yeah, it's difficult, and unfortunately, it's not just women's rugby that suffers the lack of funding, especially in comparison to the male counterparts. But as a player, I've always believed in controlling the controllables, and something like the funding I couldn't control, so I kind of put it to the back of my mind. It did mean that I had to be very good at multitasking, and many days were juggling acts to make sure I got in my training, but equally to make sure then that I was able to work as well. But equally, I do believe that it is going in the right direction. More women's teams are getting more help, more support, more funding. But I was kind of lucky in a way that when I was playing, all the women's teams were amateur. So you were all kind of competing on a level playing field. I think now we're in a bit of a grey area where you've got some teams who are full-pay professionals, and then some teams that are still very, amateur in their status. So I'm hoping that, in the next 5 years, we'll see all teams back onto a neutral playing ground. But when I was playing, it was difficult, but it was equal among everyone. So you just did the best that you could.
Very interesting. Well, moving away from your rugby career and onto things that you are doing away from the pitch, you are the managing director of Female Building and Interiors based in Cardiff. You started your business at just the age of 23 years old after graduating from university. What were some of the difficulties you faced when trying to operate a business successfully while also playing rugby at a very high level?
Yeah, it was difficult. It was very tiring. When I first set up the business, people said, you're going to work every minute of every day. And that's true. But then you've got to add training in on top of that. I think I was lucky to do it at the age of 23 because I had an abundance of energy, which I certainly had to call on. But I was very lucky because actually I had a bit of a profile with the rugby that then benefited my business. And I was able to get quite a bit of publicity when I launched it, which really helped sort of ingrain it into the community in South Wales. And luckily enough, that's remained. I've been able to tie it over. And after the first couple of years, I managed to recruit more people to work with me. So when I was going away for, say, like a World Cup, where I'd be away for almost a month, I had the girls that I could then leave in charge to sort of keep it ticking over. And it's still going over 10 years now, which I can't quite believe, but yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit more about Female Building and Interiors. As you mentioned, the business has been in operation now for a decade. Based on the name of your company, is it only female builders you hire? How many do you roughly have on your team at the moment? And please tell our listeners that it is more than just painting that you are skilled at.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that I am actually family taught. So my father was a builder and my grandfather was also a builder. So consequently, I became multi-skilled. So yes, on the front of what we can offer, it's everything from painting and decorating right the way through to full house renovations. In regards to the people that I work with, we simply say that we can offer an all-female workforce. It's actually not just females that work with me in the company. I subcontract out to many male trades as well. I think there are some sensitive situations where people would prefer just to have all female, and that's fine, and we can offer that. But then quite often I'll get people phoning me up just saying, look, as long as I know you're in charge, I don't care who's working for you, but I want you to manage it. And that's absolutely fine as well. So then it'll simply be, as pretty much how it should be, just the right person for the job, regardless of whether they're a male or female.
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned there, your father and grandfather were major influences in you creating your own construction and renovations business, as they too were builders in the trade. Do you still go to your father for advice?
Oh, yeah, constantly. I was phoning up my dad. My grandpa, bless him, is no longer with us, but my dad, and he quite enjoys it. I'll phone him up and just say, I just want to check, I've got this, and would you do this or would you do that? And it's always good to have a sounding board, because that's one of the great things I enjoy about the building industry is it's ever changing. There's new equipment coming out, there's new materials coming out. No one job is ever exactly the same. So it's quite good just to be able to pass my ideas around to my father, and then obviously pass off his good ideas as my own.
Well, your secret is safe with us, I guess. Well, building and construction is an extremely stereotypical profession if you look at it. You've touched on how some clients will only want you and your builders to work on their property, but I'm sure that there have been times that you found that potential clients have overlooked your company as they rather wanted to have men work on their property. How do you deal with that sort of thing on a personal level?
Yeah, hey, I'm sure it probably has, just as I'm sure some great quality male-run firms may have been shunned because they specifically wanted me as a woman. I tend not to focus on that too much. We've been very fortunate to be busy, so I've never really had to sort of sit back and think, why isn't the phone ringing? It's very lucky from the moment I set it up that we were always busy. So I have had some sort of feedback in that typically they think, oh, you're just maybe a decorating firm, and they thought they wouldn't come to us because they thought they needed more of a building construction firm. But, that's fine. As soon as then they do hear about what we do, it tends to always be positive, and people get us in for what they need then.
Philippa, apart from your construction business, you are also in the process of launching your own mentoring company. Could you elaborate on this in terms of what sort of mentoring you'll be focusing on, who you'll be working with, and how far along are you in the business becoming fully operational?
So like I said, when I first retired from the rugby union game, I had an opportunity to mentor more sort of gifted and talented young people and help to sort of guide them on their elite pathway. But then when I started working with the Dame Kelly Holmes Trust, they actually link up local international athletes with kids from more disadvantaged backgrounds. So kids that may not even be showing an inkling into sport, but we connect with them and develop attitudes, same sort of attitude you need to develop if you want to be a world-class athlete. It's actually the same sort of attitude you need to get you out of sometimes some quite dark situations, and some situations where you may feel are not quite in your control. And both of these opportunities I found really rewarding, really interesting. So I started to inquire about getting qualified, becoming more official, which I've now done. Okay. So I'm a level 3 qualified mentor. And I've set up the website and the business, got a whole page on what I can offer. And I'm looking really to try and cover as many bases as possible. I want, whether it's a gifted and talented young person, middle-aged person, old person, or whether it's someone from a troubled background or not, to be able to still have the opportunity to work with me. So I offer a variety from one-off workshops where I might just go into a school and do sort of a droplet session on anything from nutrition or maybe more goal setting, or quite a hot one at the moment is all about positive mindset, which obviously was massive for me in my career, right the way through to long-term, more structured mentoring programs. At the moment, I'm probably specifically looking to target young people to start with, so going into schools. But I'm hoping off that it may actually open up. I might be able to work more with people of all ages and all backgrounds.
It sounds absolutely incredible, and we wish you all the best in that new venture. Well, Philippa, what are some of the skills from playing rugby do you find you rely on a daily basis to keep your construction business going and also to motivate you to pursue new ventures like your mentoring company?
It's amazing, actually, how many sort of more attitudes rather than, I'd say, skills that I've been able to develop playing sport to a high level that you don't even realise you're using and you're taking back to your business. But I certainly know with keeping the building working, you cannot be afraid of hard work, which is something I've never shunned away from. And always carrying that ethos with me when I was playing, that it doesn't matter how many caps you've got, you're only ever as good as your last game. And I carry that through then to the building. You know, it doesn't matter how many referrals I've got, how many recommendations I've got, every job needs to be on point. And I guess there's a sense of accountability with your training as an international athlete, that, you know, a lot of it is on you. And, you know, you could skip the odd session and no one would notice, but that place on your conscience. And I was always a very proud player. I did everything as was to try and get the best. And I certainly try and install that then in my colleagues in work. And I think also from a leadership perspective, I was never a captain in rugby, but it got to a point where I was a senior player and I was always encouraged to sort of motivate others, support others. And there was never a hierarchy system in rugby. You know, no matter whether you're a captain, a vice, a senior, simply working together to get the best out of everyone. And I try and bring that as well into the business. I'm not the boss. I'm there to sort of facilitate, if you will. I organise the job. I get the materials there. But once you're told what your job is for that day, I leave it up to them. It's up to you to do the best job that you can do. And I'm there to support. So I found quite a few things have sort of crossed over and really benefited me, which has been great.
I like what you said there. You're only as good as your last game, and how that attitude needs to be applied more in business. Well, to top it all off, you have also been on television quite a bit as a presenter for Channel 4's The Renovation Game, having your own show on UK TV called DIY with Philippa, and you're also an athlete role model for Sky Sports Academy. What do you enjoy most from this part of your life?
Well, with the TV, I mean, that was massively out of my comfort zone, being put in front of a camera, but I kind of like that as well, you know, because I always believe you never know how good you could be at something until you're uncomfortably pushed. And certainly putting me in front of the camera was slightly uncomfortable to start with, but I loved it and I learned so much. I got to travel a lot with that, which was great. And it just opened my eyes to an industry that I hadn't really had an opportunity in before. So I really enjoyed that side of things. And then, like I say, with the Sky Academy, working sort of as a mentor and as a role model, just having that opportunity to connect with young people, doing workshops with them around goal setting, around motivation. You'd be amazed when you see that sort of penny drop and they start thinking, oh, I could do this, or maybe I could do that. Just that little opening your eyes sort of situation is really humbling to be a part of. Yeah, giving the young people an opportunity to just maybe think just slightly more positively about their future and slightly more motivated to try different things is incredibly rewarding.
Absolutely. Well, lastly, Philippa, please, could you leave our listeners with some final words of advice, and particularly to the female rugby players out there that are interested in going into business after rugby? What do they need to be doing now to make sure that their transition is a lot easier?
I think, you know what, when it comes to a transition from such a massive thing like an international career, I think it's very personal, and everyone's going to react differently, and everyone's going to have different thoughts and feelings about it. But I would say just remember to be proud of what you've done, and remember that everything you've done, it doesn't end there. You've learned from it and use it. You'd be amazed, like I say, how many attitudes you've shaped, how many skills you've gained, and how much of a benefit that is going to be. And if you've been playing any international sport, you are not afraid of hard work, you are not afraid to dedicate yourself, and that alone is going to be really successful for you to put that towards your business.
Great way to end it off right there. Philippa, you are truly an inspiration in what you have done in rugby and in business. Stereotypes are there to be broken, and you are certainly swinging at it with a sledgehammer. Thank you for sharing your experiences and advice with the Rugby Business Network, and we wish you much more success in your business career.
Thank you very much.